Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Ashley here with Ashley Tolton Art. Thanks for joining me, and thank you to all who wished me well. I'm finally on the mend and I'm loving it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if I liked my last two videos. It was worth a shot, but I feel like a year from now I'm gonna look back and be like, ooh. Anyways, in this video we've got something super cool for you guys. I have 3 tips that I think will help you make your paintings more realistic. And if you stay till the end, there may or may not be a bonus tip for free for you. So with that, let's jump right in and tell you the 3 most important things for realism painting. And of course, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like and subscribe, it helps me out a bunch with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're already subscribed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are amazing, and I see you. So number 1, we have color. To me, color is super important because that's what your brain interprets, and that's how it relates a painting to real life. And so I guess what I mean by color is that 1, there's more gray in real life and less contrast than people really think that there is. Don't get me wrong, there's exceptions. With everything that I'm about to say, there's always little exceptions here and there. But in general, people can get a little saturated with their colors, and I'm just as guilty. Not only do I have paintings that have that, but there's times I still have to tell myself to tone it down and that's not really the color that's going on. And that's fine, because obviously there's a million and one ways to make a painting in a different style. But if you're going for hyperrealism, I do think there's more gray in nature than we think there is. And so, when you're painting, like, really analyze what you're looking at and ask yourself, like, how saturated is this? What color am I really looking at right there? In general, things further back tend to be desaturated. Things further forward tend to have more saturation. I do have a tool that's kind of cool. And so you hold it up to, well, it's held this way, but for you looking, you would put your paint here and hold it up to your reference, and you would look through this hole, and then on the top half is what you're looking at, bottom half is the paint, and then you can kind of compare the 2 colors. And I've found that really helps teach you how to see colors, because oftentimes we paint what we think we see, not what we actually see. And that was a really big lesson for me to learn, was to learn to paint what's there and not what I think should be there. Again, with realism, there's so many beautiful ways to get it done and add a bunch of saturation. This is just for hyperrealism. Tip number 2, edges. I think a thing that can help someone become more realistic with their paintings is being conscientious of the edges and when they need to be sharp and when they need to be softened. So when you look at this painting, out of these 2 areas, which one looks like it's farther back in the distance? I'm gonna guess you picked that one. And that's right. And those edges are very soft. Versus something that I want to be on the foreground, which has very distinct edges. It has a distinct edge around the berry itself or the branch, but also the difference between light and shadow is a little more obvious. Whereas that in general is just very softened. And so that gives your eye a sense of depth and adds a bit of perspective to your paintings. So again, things that are closer, you want them to be a bit sharper. things that are further away, you want them to be softer. Same with like edges versus like main subject. You want that to be in focus versus things like kind of going towards the outer edge don't need to be as defined. Again, take it with a grain of salt. There's a beautiful way to make any of these rules an exception. But, you know, for generally speaking, and for those learning, that's a good tip. So watch your edges. Number 3, I have texture. The reason I think texture, and it kind of plays with edges as well, but the reason I think texture is really important is because it can add another sense of perspective and dimensionality to your paintings, which I think is really cool. As a general rule, it's better to keep shadows smoother and highlights chunkier. The reason for that is that the way that just natural light will hit the painting, if shadows are smooth, it'll keep them kind of dark and pushed back. Whereas if you paint with a bit of texture in your highlights, it gives something for natural light to bounce off of and hit, and so it'll enhance your highlights naturally, which is really cool. So you're almost like sculpting while you're painting, which I think is super cool. I have a lot of fun with it. And again, you can see in this painting, it's not done yet, but we do have shadows, which I've tried to keep smoother. And then I'm gonna have to do a detailed shot for you to see, but all the highlights are put on in a thicker paint on top. And yeah, I think it just adds a beautiful sense of depth, and it interacts with your natural eye really, really well. So many tips and tricks on this one, but you go back in on the second layer and you add more highlights and shadows. You can kind of just let your brush glide over that texture, especially with branches. That creates a really, really realistic look because it's a little bit more random than what you would do if you were painting every bit of texture on a branch. This is just like a faster way that you can kind of glide your brush over, and it just happens to kind of like catch on that groove or not that groove, and it makes it look really cool. Okay, and as promised, your bonus tip. Number 4, I think without a doubt we can all agree proportions are really important. I guess I didn't want to put that in with the original 3 because the original 3 are when you're already at the painting stage, whereas proportions kind of come before the painting. But if you have the right proportions for everything, that's gonna help everything that comes after it. And it actually, having the right proportions, you can be less perfect with your colors and texture and stuff like that, and it can still look good. So maybe proportions is actually one of the most important things for realism. It's also one of the hardest things because it takes a lot of drawing practice, and it takes a lot of hours, again, and studying and just practicing things in order to get that down. There are ways. You can use projectors, you can use the grid system to help, tracing paper. There's a lot of tools that artists have to help just make that process faster, but nothing beats just having the hours put into sketching and practicing proportions that way. And I believe you work on these and you're gonna see your paintings just... So anyways, if you want to know more about each individual category and how to improve on that one specifically, leave it in the comment below and we can get that video made for you. Thank you again for stopping by. I don't know if vlogs are here to stay, but now that I'm feeling better, more progress is definitely going to be made on all my oil paintings, and that's really exciting. And those videos will be coming out very soon. So, thank you again, and I'll catch you in the next one.